So thank you for this session on how to strengthen a local government leadership for sanitation and hygiene. This session is divided into two main blocks. In the first block, we are presenting the main findings of a research and learning program that we have been carrying out in partnership with several countries and organizations in the last 1.5 years. The second part of the session is going to be about debate and questions and answers about this. My name is John Melloni. I work as a research officer at the Sanitation Learning Hub, and I am facilitating the first part of this session. While I'm very happy to be with us, Joliane Mollett from UNICEF West and Central Africa Regional Office, who is going to facilitate the second part of this session. And we have several great panelists and presenters. We have Afu Chantal Bangali from IRC WASH in Mali, Shadrach Gusu from United Purpose in Nigeria. Unfortunately, Firmin Akpako from Helvetas in Benin can't join us for today. We have Isifu Adama from UNICEF in Ghana, Nana Kobe Abonso from the University of Development Studies in Ghana, and Rashida Mohammed from the Yendi Municipal Assembly, also in Ghana. Jamie Myers from the Sanitation Learning Hub is also with us, as well as Alice Webb, who has volunteered to be our rapporteur only for today. So let's see, why are we talking about local governments in sanitation and hygiene? Talking about this because there are some big commitments and very important commitments out there towards strong leadership and coordination at all levels for sustainable sanitation, towards adequate and equitable sanitation for all, and we're talking about the Ngor Declaration and the Sustainable Development Goals. And in recent years, WASH system approaches have been highlighting the complexity of reaching everybody with sustainable sanitation, and also have recognized the centrality of local government leadership and political will to do so. However, there are some knowledge gaps. First of all, how to foster all this in practice. And secondly, how to do so at the local government level, where sanitation and hygiene responsibilities often sit. To try and answer these questions, we have carried out some research and learning in the last 1.5 years. With the objectives of identifying cases of local government leadership in sanitation and hygiene, identifying stakeholders' roles and responsibilities, and finding levers of change and barriers to change. We also have been trying to see where equity and inclusion sits in this framework, and to put forth actionable recommendations for all stakeholders. And we have done this through in-country case studies and through participatory online workshops. This is an overview of the scope of our research and learning initiative, with 7 countries involved: Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, Benin, Ghana, Guinea, and Nigeria, and several partners: UNICEF, WaterAid, WSSCC, Helvetas, and United Purpose, and of course the local governments with which they partner in their work in sanitation and hygiene. And we have found a big number of positive changes that have highlighted the leadership of local governments, which I'm going just to summarize very shortly here, because there will be time to talk about this later on in the session. In several areas, what we have noticed is that local governments have played a big role to strengthen local governance bodies. For instance, in Moyo district in Uganda, the Water and Sanitation Coordination Committee has been revived. In Logo, LGA in Benue State, Nigeria, local WASH unit has been put in place. These are just examples. There has been an increased focus on financing. An example is from the Siaya County in Kenya, but also from the Yendi municipality in Ghana and the region where the municipality is. And also we have found a much strong emphasis on stronger accountability mechanisms. For instance, in Benin, in the Ndali commune, municipal sessions emphasize sanitation in all of their occurrences. Another example is Molota commune in Guinea, where there is a community-based monitoring of the ODF status. And once again, in Yendi Municipal in Ghana, there is the regional council updates and publicizes an ODF league table on a yearly basis. So these are some just highlights in terms of what has changed. And I leave the floor to our colleague Afu to continue with some key highlights.
Okay, thank you very much, Gian, and good afternoon to you all. You can go to the next slide. Yeah. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Afu, can you?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so Gian, you can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so thank you for the introduction, Gian, on this research that we are going to share the findings with all of you. And some of the key things we call like motivators that can help in. I have some echo coming in. Is it my microphones or is it? Okay. So some of the what we can call the level of change in terms of strengthening local government leadership for sanitation and hygiene, we can see in through the research 4 key motivators. And among those one is about reputation and pride. And in that case, we are talking about institutional, the process of institutional triggering. This has proven in the different case studies to be very effective to raise awareness among local officials and elected and civil servants in the community. So this was some of one of the motivator. Another one was under the reputation was the promotion of healthy competition in between areas, and also this involvement of elected and technocrats coming together in synergy that has make proven to help local government leadership to increase in prioritizing sanitation and hygiene. Another motivator that we can mention in across cutting in a different research is the enabling environment. And on that one, having clear national strategies can help local governments in terms of planning and in terms of collaborating with developing partners at local level. Another one was about access to funding. Then access to funding, this can be one of the motivator. And we've seen that one, like for example, the result-based financing in some countries, and promoting sanitation markets in some other countries as well. and remunerated community volunteers. All these are motivators that help local government leadership to prioritize sanitation in their community. We can go to the next slide, please. So on this one, we are talking about barriers, because we have some level of change, but we're still facing some barriers in terms of local government leadership strengthening in sanitation and hygiene. And among those barriers, we can mention the political will, because it has been proved to be very hard to keep a commitment of politician or elected local government for extended periods. And this especially when election happen, there are shifting of priorities in the community. So this is one of the barriers we can mention. Another one we can mention here is about the institutional arrangement. We mean by that the role and the responsibility at local level sometimes can be very unclear. And we can find also the dependency of not either national or state level in terms of even funding. So this is one of the challenge or one of the barrier we've seen in this research. Another one we will mention is the equity and inclusion. About the equity and inclusion, in this research, it remained difficult to reach the last mile. That means there are no many good practices we've seen that's needed to scale up in this case. And another one is about the resources, which was coming up very clearly. In about the resources is about, we're talking about the availability of the resources, but we're talking about also the access of external resources. And most of the resources are coming either from central government or developing partners. And this is an issue that limits the capacity of local to raise the local resources or local government leadership in raising more local resources. So among those are some of the key challenges and talking about low performance areas and others. Affordability as well. Next slide, please. Okay. So for this one, there are some key recommendations that came up in the different, across the case studies. And they are regrouped in 4 items, we'll say, or 4 emerging thematic that we'll say. So the first one is about the reputation and accountability. We would like to encourage development partners and also central governments and local governments to focus on the promotion of institutional triggering process, and also to establish a healthy public competition between areas. And we encourage as well to foster accountability. And this accountability can be fostered through either planning or a regular review, and also making or giving space to civil society organizations to play an innovative role in all this. Then the second recommendation that came up is about institutional arrangement and synergy. And for that, we encourage development partners and local governments and to promote more what we call technical wash departments locally, and also to pass more bylaws on sanitation and hygiene, and also to be promoting budget line regarding sanitation and hygiene at community budgets to be a priority. Then in terms of also promoting what we call local government synergy with all stakeholders to make to promote synergy work and collaboration at local level. In terms of finances, we the development partners should be looking at multiple mechanisms of financing, because as we've seen in the barrier, it's difficult for local governments. Resource mobilization is a big challenge. So there is needed to think and to look at multiple financing mechanisms. And some of those mechanisms can be like the result-based financing, which we will be hearing from some of the countries such as, I think, Ghana or Nigeria. Then the promotion also of Solidarity Fund. Those are among some of the financing mechanisms that can be looked at it at a local level. Then another things we also should look at in terms of recommendation is about equity and inclusion. And for that, we will encourage all actors to identify who is vulnerable when it comes on sanitation and hygiene, and to focus more on the last mile with a very specific strategy in the context where this will happen, and also to promote what we call area-wide approaches that includes all communities. So these are some of the key recommendations that came up in this research we did. So thank you for your attention, and I think we'll have more time to discuss in the Q&A discussion. Thank you. Back to you, Gian.
Thank you. Thank you for this. And sorry for this tiny technical hiccups. Now, before we move on to the presentations from 2 or 3 case studies, I wonder if any of the participants has any questions, not necessarily about the details, but more about this kind of top-line findings and top-line recommendations that we just mentioned. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box, if you don't mind. And if you type questions, feel free to type those questions in English or French, because we have the capacity to read in both languages. There is a question also about the slides of this, and yeah, my colleague Jamie has already answered. Yes, for sure. We would be very happy to share the presentation that we just completed with anybody who is interested. I would say that I think there are no questions coming up for now. So I would stop sharing my screen and move on to our colleagues based in the countries of the case studies. So I would leave the floor to Shadrach Gusu from United Purpose in Nigeria for his 5-minute presentation about the logo case study. The floor is yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me. Okay, so my name is Shadrach. I've been introduced already, so I'll just skip that. And I'll be presenting on the Logo case study. Logo is a local government in Benue State, Nigeria. A quick background, there are 774 local governments in Nigeria, and Logo is just one of them. Located in Benue State, north central of Nigeria, is the first local government to be declared open defecation free in Benue State and north central, and is the 7th in the country, in Nigeria. The situation before now is that there was a wash unit, and I had few staff and a very low capacity, had minimal funding from the local government, and wash projects were implemented here and there, but they were done in selected communities and not area-wide. So we'll look at quickly the positive change. Local Government Council Authority revamped the wash unit, provided office space, and redeployed staff from different departments to the wash unit to have an enlarged unit for sanitation and hygiene. There has been intermittent release of funds by the local government to the wash unit. At the achievement of local government as open defecation free, this served as a motivation to the state government and led to release of funds to be allocated to 3 additional local governments to undertake open defecation free activities. Also, the traditional council became very active, mobilizing their constituents and putting in place bylaws against open defecation, and also holding political leaders accountable to commitment for sanitation and hygiene. Okay, so major contributors to this change is the fact that institutional championing was stronger at the state level by state technocrats in RUWASA, which is the state agency for rural sanitation and hygiene. And they pushed for downward action by the local governments, rather than even the more than even the political leaders championing the cause of sanitation and hygiene. The state government had a clear plan to improve sanitation and hygiene, and they also got a grant from WSSCC. They put in place minimum requirement for participation by the local governments, which forced the local government to rejig or revamp their wash units. United Purpose was on ground to provide technical and funding support to allow for clear plans to end open defecation, and also provided capacity building support to partners. At the local government, the key driver of change was the wash unit rather than the local politicians. And the state RUWASA also found a way of ring-fencing funds directly to the wash unit so that it doesn't get reprioritized by politicians at the local level. And in the case of Nigeria, traditional leaders are very strong institutions. They were strong in supporting the whole movement and holding local government accountable. Wash Unit and United Purpose worked with them very closely in the process. The state RUWASA provided training, capacity building for the Wash Unit. So quickly look at the barriers. Funding has still been inconsistent, regardless of the small gains, and it brought about heavy dependence on donor funding for the wash units. The traditional authority, regardless of their influence, they are still limited in terms of their influence on institutions. There is inconsistent leadership at the local government level, and then conflict and insecurity that was prevalent in Logo led to prioritizing security as against sanitation and hygiene. Key learnings. One is the fact that the state government has to have a clear a plan for improvement of sanitation and hygiene and provide minimum requirements for LGA participation. This will make the LGAs, leadership at the LGAs to sit up and do the needful. The traditional authorities are very influential and they should be utilized to bring about change and commitment from the political leaders. There must be a clear plan of engagement and every institution must know their role so that they can fit into it properly. And then there is need to use result-based advocacy to advocate to political leaders for funding of sanitation and hygiene. Thank you.
Thank you, Shadrach, for this interesting presentation about the case of Logo LGA in Nigeria. And without further ado, I would leave the floor to the colleagues from Ghana to present the case of the Yendi Municipal. It would be great if you can present this in 5 minutes so there is enough space for questions, answers, and discussion.
All right.
We can't hear.
Okay. Good afternoon. Please, can you hear me now? So my name is Nana Kobia. I'll be sharing the case study from Yendi Municipal in Ghana. So in Ghana, the country has been divided into 16 administrative regions. And these regions have further been divided into metropolitan, municipal, or district assemblies. So in total, there are 260 metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. And Yendi is one of them. Yendi actually falls in the northern region of Ghana. It currently has a population of about 150,000 people, with females being 51% and males being 49%. Predominantly, the people in Yendi depend on agriculture, and so most of them are into farming, with a few into petty trading. At the local government level, it is the municipal chief executive who is the political head. And then you also have the municipal coordinating director who leads the day-to-day administration of the municipal. He is not a politician, but a public servant. So these two individuals are the leaders of the municipal. They are the spending officers, and they are very critical in determining where resources of a particular municipal goes to. In Yendi Municipal, we have noticed that over the last 5 years, there has been increasing sanitation coverage in the district. If you look at the number of ODFs in the district, before 2015, there were only about 15 communities declared open defecation free. But as at 2021, there are about 180 communities declared open defecation free. If you look at the population of people practicing open defecation in Yendi now, it's about 40%. And currently, about 80% of the communities in Yendi have been declared open defecation free. And it is good to know that these include some 5 small towns. So now the question is, what have leadership in Yendi done to ensure that all this progress in sanitation have been made? So these leaders have actively been involved in sanitation programs in the district. The leaders in Yendi have gone to the field to discuss sanitation matters and supervise sanitation activities of frontline staff. We noticed that the leadership has also supported to gazette the sanitation bylaws in the district. And each time funds are sent to the district for sanitation activities, the leadership have ensured that there is timely release of these funds. What has triggered the leadership in the district to support sanitation like they are doing now? We'll highlight 3 reasons. The first of all is the establishment of an open defecation-free league table, both at the regional level and at the municipal. So at the municipal, the small units in the municipal have competition among themselves, and at the region, there's competition between Yendi and others. There's also the results-based financing, which has shift focus on results. So the more results you get, the more donor funding or support you get. And finally, there's been intense capacity building for various stakeholders at the district level. We have found out that strong leadership is important. We've also seen that league tables also create a lot of competition. And we've also seen that once the municipal chief executives and the municipal coordinating director have certain key performance indicators related to sanitation tied to them, they are able to support sanitation activities as expected. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nana, for this interesting and concise presentation. Now we are going to present a couple of minutes about the case of Ndali Commune in Benin, which I will have to do as the colleagues from Benin unfortunately have had technical difficulties to join the session. So bear with me if I will not be able to take questions on this, because I am not enough into the details of the local context of Ndali. So let me try and share my screen, hopefully this time without okay, I hope you are seeing my screen. Okay, that's great. And what I will also do, I will switch to French because it is easier for me to do the presentation in French. Ok, voilà, maintenant je suis en train de parler français et donc les anglophones, ils doivent m'entendre normalement à travers la traduction. Donc cette présentation est sur l'engagement de la mairie d'Ndali au Bénin dans la promotion de l'hygiène et de l'assainissement. Voilà, donc quelle est la situation hygiène-assainissement dans la commune? Donc sur le plan national, la moitié de la population pratique la défécation à l'air libre avec une forte prévalence dans le milieu rural. Dans la commune d'Ndali, la défécation à l'air libre reste une pratique courante avec 86% de la population qui la pratique. Et seulement les 3% des ménages disposent des toilettes hygiéniques. Et il y a aussi la TPC qui a été mise en œuvre dans 3 arrondissements de la commune. Et aussi, une chose assez importante a été l'introduction de l'approche marketing de l'assainissement à travers les projets OMI Delta avec l'organisation Helvetas, avec la promotion de latrines améliorées, abordables, appelées Wate Alafia. Le changement positif qui a été observé est une plus forte collaboration avec le secteur privé local, avec des résultats visibles. Et à peu près 200 latrines Wate Alafia ont été réalisées par les ménages dans les dernières 2 années, avec plus ou moins 2000 personnes qui ont abandonné la défécation à l'air libre. Et aussi avec des revenus importants pour les micro-entrepreneurs, par exemple les maçons locaux, avec presque 10 millions de francs CFA de chiffre d'affaires. Et selon Helvetas, il y a un fort potentiel pour le passage à l'échelle dans toute la commune. Quelles sont les contributions qui ont provoqué ce genre de changement? Tout d'abord, l'utilisation des sessions communales et d'arrondissement et des séances populaires de reddition de comptes pour sensibiliser la population sur l'assainissement et l'hygiène. Et aussi le fort engagement du maire par rapport à l'importance de l'hygiène et de l'assainissement avec un dialogue de proximité avec ses administrés. Également, l'implication des cercles religieux et traditionnels dans la sensibilisation des ménages et l'activation de la commission communale d'hygiène et assainissement avec l'obligation de rendre compte au conseil communal à chaque trimestre. Également, il y a eu la provision d'une ligne budgétaire hygiène et assainissement dans le budget de la commune, l'obligation de comptes rendus des chefs d'arrondissement sur l'avancement de l'hygiène et assainissement, et aussi le support d'un partenaire de développement qui a été l'organisation Helvetas. Par contre, il y a des barrières et des leçons apprises. Les barrières, tout d'abord, est que les allocations budgétaires pour l'assainissement sont encore trop faibles. Et aussi, il y a une faible capacité de services communaux en termes de ressources techniques et capacité de planification. Et à présent, il y a l'inexistence d'un partenaire actuellement actif pour accompagner la mairie dans ses ambitions en hygiène et assainissement, comme le projet d'assainissement, de marketing de l'assainissement qu'on a mentionné vient de se clôturer. Et il y a des leçons apprises qui ont été développées. Et là, Helvetas parle d'un triangle d'or où il y a le développement d'une demande de produits et de services d'hygiène et d'assainissement, mais aussi le renforcement de l'offre pour ça, donc la disponibilité de compétences locales. Et si on parle des micro-entrepreneurs, on parle des maçons locaux. Et surtout, il y a la volonté politique au haut niveau de l'administration communale de renforcer ce genre de système et de promouvoir le développement de l'assainissement au niveau local. Donc, il s'agit de choses qu'on a trouvées dans l'étude de cas de Ndali au Bénin et que moi j'ai résume à la place du collègue d'Helvetas qui n'a pas pu nous joindre aujourd'hui. Merci. Et maintenant, je passe à nouveau à l'anglais. Okay, now I am speaking English again. We have concluded, I think, the first part of our session. We are quite in time on our schedule. I hope this has been interesting and stimulating for everyone in the audience so far. And I am very happy to leave the floor to Jolianne to coordinate and facilitate the second half of the session. Jolianne, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks so much, John, and thanks to all the presenters for their very interesting presentations. I think some of the... Can you hear me okay? Yes, okay, maybe it's on your side, John. So some of the key things I was able to summarize from the presentations that came just before me was the importance of having, the institutions in place supporting sanitation, not just relying on individual champions or politicians, but really having the range of actors there who would kind of make sure that this agenda and this topic is advanced at the local government level. Also, I think the importance of partnerships. There was a mention of, partnerships with political leaders, with the state governments, with religious leaders, as well as traditional leaders. And in the case of Benin, the partnership with the private sector seemed to be key as well to driving kind of the sanitation results with local government in the lead. And lastly, the importance of bylaws and having that regulation in place, led again by local government, seemed to also be a common driver of change. And of course, we confirmed the importance of institutional triggering, at least to get that initial political level commitment for sanitation, as well as the importance of having resources to actually, implement any commitments to sanitation that local governments put in place. But as we all know, the consistent gap in resources that exist even to this day, regardless of how much political will we've got at the local government level. So I'm going to now move on to our panelists who can give us a bit more detail about the cases that were presented, and also, we'll incorporate some of the questions from the audience members into the discussion. So please don't hesitate to continue typing your questions on the chat box. I'm going to start with Afu, who did the summary across all the case studies in the region. Afu, what did you find most surprising about the findings across the three countries in the region? And, what do you think are the most interesting points, that participants today should learn from these cases? Over to you, Afu.
Thank you, Julian. Going through all this exercise of the case study, few things that I've learned and I've seen across. The first is really the commitment of the local government. And when we talk about the commitment, it's about the mayor himself. Because in most of the case study, the involvement of the mayor himself in terms of leading the process and in terms of even driving all the system together in the community was very, very key, and we can see it, we can touch it, and that has led to very concrete results. Like when I look at the case, for example, for Guinea, where you have these volunteers in the community and helping in monitoring, helping in reporting activities, helping in raising awareness among the community sensitizations. And this initiative is something that the mayor is supporting. It is really something very inspiring and a great learning point that one could think of taking in other countries. And looking, for example, also like in Dali, where you find the mayor has these systems of accountability, where there's this giving back and review and this consultation framework put in place where the mayor can come in and meet the community, all the stakeholders, and present what was done, what are the challenges, and how do we plan together. So there was this really synergy that was coming in, which is something need probably as good example to scale up in strengthening local government leadership when it comes on prioritizing sanitation and hygiene. So I think my takeaway in this was really those two key points. The local leader involvement himself was very, very key. And all this is what's led to different results that or the findings that we presented in these case studies.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that concise response, Afu. I think, again, very clearly highlighting, having that leadership at the top. And multiple of you said, this is very important, and institutional triggering is one way that we can really galvanize this political action. I'm going to pass to Nana from Ghana, because I think, once we get this political commitment in place, one of the key challenges is how do we actually sustain it? And we know that, mayors, for the most part, are elected, so they're not always going to be there, after their term. So maybe, Nana, could you share some thoughts on what you think can help sustain the political commitment for sanitation at the local government level?
So one of the things that can help is for central government to try and have key performance indicators for leadership at the local government level. If that is institutionalized, then it will force these local government authorities or leaders to want to support sanitation and hygiene, because as part of their performance contract, they would have sanitation indicators which would tell everyone if they are really supporting the development agenda and specifically sanitation here. So really driving the issue of key performance indicators for local authority leadership is very helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nana. I know that in Ghana, that was one of the key recommendations for the case study, and something you guys are pushing to move forward. If I can pass it over to Rashida from the Yandi municipality to let us know a little bit, what are the current barriers faced to institutionalizing key performance indicators for sanitation in Ghana, and what do you think would help overcome these barriers? Rashida, you're currently on mute. If you can please turn on your video and unmute, that will be great. Okay, why don't we wait for Rashida to be able to unmute? I'm going to pass on to our next panelist, Shadrach from United Purpose in Nigeria. There was a question in the chat from Kareem from Burkina Faso about this multidisciplinary task force and bringing together various sectors to be part of the WASH unit at the local government level. Sometimes we understand that this can be a challenging feat to achieve. So what were kind of some of the lessons you've learned from trying to do this? How do you really make sure that you're able to involve various sectors within this WASH unit or team at the local level to advance sanitation? Over to you, Shadrach.
Okay, thank you, Julianne, for that question. So it's bringing in different staff from different departments, multi-sectoral, to form the WASH unit. It's more or less like an ad hoc arrangement to fill in the gap of the fact that there is no existing strong WASH structure at the local government. The ideal thing is to have a WASH department. Now, so going to the concerns one of the participants shared about keeping the challenges having that kind of arrangement. One of the challenges is that there's usually frequent Can you hear me?
I'm back. Okay.
Okay, let me go on. So there's usually frequent transfers of staff out of the WASH unit or recalling them back to their parent departments. Now, when we have an arrangement where the wash units are upgraded to become departments, at that point, you can now have permanent staff of the wash department. Also, to add to the issues of sustainability that you are raising, when you have a wash department, the wash department will have their own budget, and they will have also their own budget lines where they don't need to be begging for money. But when, as a unit, the unit is under a different department and they don't have a budget line of their own. So that is part of the reason why you have issues of problems with financing coming from the government and all of that. Yes, so I hope I answered the question.
Great, thanks so much, Shadrach. I think you've really emphasized the importance of having the institutional arrangements in place, because if we don't have these departments really within the, the way that the local governments are structured, we won't be able to, mobilize resources and really take sanitation forward. I'm going to hand now to Rashida. Rashida, feel free to unmute yourself, and could you let us know specifically what are the current barriers faced to institutionalizing the sanitation as a key performance indicator for municipalities in Ghana, and what are your suggestions on how we can overcome these barriers?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you for the technical hinge. I'm sorry. I'm in a very remote area, that's why. Okay. Back to the question. In Ghana, we have the district performance assessment tool, which is they use it to assess metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies on annual basis. And then it has to do with compliance, how the MMDS, excuse me to use a short code, the abbreviation, MMDS are metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies. Basically, the DPAT is used to assess the compliance, service delivery, and then performance. So MMDS, we are calling for these indicators to be review, to be more stronger. Hello? Oh my God.
We can hear you, Rashida. Go ahead.
Okay. So mostly these indicators that is used for assessment, we say they look more actionable rather than the output and indicator type. And then we are, I'm getting some break. Hello? Hello?
Yes, still okay.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
So you realize that MMDAs mostly score, when the assessments are done, they score more marks. And then on the ground, most of these issues that they score marks on is not actually there. And so, hey, what is wrong with my, hello?
Go ahead, we can hear you. Now you're muted though, so you can unmute and continue.
Okay. Okay, so currently the challenge is the challenge we are facing as a country has to do with getting. Oh my God.
I think, Rashida, you can just continue because we can hear you very well.
Yeah, hello. So
yeah,
I
just
get
continue.
this
There's no problem.
I get this feedback from my, I don't know whether from my headset, some noise. Okay.
We can hear you very well. So you were saying the problem at right now in Ghana is what exactly?
So just the assessment is already nationwide. It's already nationwide, and we are calling for more the sanitation indicators to be more stronger and clearer, so that they can use it to assess MMDCs and DCDs. So I don't think that would be much of a problem with
Okay. Rashida, could you tell us, just as a follow-up question, what are maybe, one or two key indicators that you're hoping to have within this key performance indicators for local government leaders?
So, hello. Yes. So for instance, when these assessments are done, at the end of the day, resources are given, and these resources are mostly channeled to expansion of infrastructure, health and education infrastructure, that rather than tackling the issues of sanitation, because sanitation issues are seen to be soft, because we have to do a lot of sensitizations at the community level. The officers have to move to communities. And then what we are simply calling is that at the end of the day, when these resources are made available, at least part of it should be used to enhance sanitation, to work on sanitation activities. Because at the end of the day, even though currently sanitation indicators are there, but they are not so stronger. But we are calling that at the end of the day, these sanitation indicators, when oh my God, this thing.
Oh, it's very clear, Rashida. Thank you.
Yeah, so you can hear me now?
Yes,
Hello?
very well.
Okay.
Great. I think that was a great response, Rashida. Thank you so much. So you really emphasized the importance of making sure that, like, one, we have these performance indicators that don't only take into account the construction component, which is infrastructure for sanitation, but also making sure there's a budget allocation for behavior change, sensitization, follow-ups, etc., so that we're able to maintain the momentum and then also go to scale, because we know obviously that households are the ones that normally finance their sanitation facilities, and the financing that needs to come through local government is more for the sensitization components, particularly for individual sanitation facilities. I think the other interesting thing from Rashida's intervention was the fact that she was talking about how these performance indicators actually inform resource allocation in the future. So I'm guessing that in Ghana there will be the higher performing districts might be able to access more funding for sanitation and hygiene in the future if they're able to showcase their results, which is, I think, quite interesting and a strong incentive for local governments to perform. Speaking about kind of local government performance, and incentivizing local governments to actually increase results for sanitation. In Ghana, the team has been working on what they call district league tables, which actually rank various districts against each other in terms of their sanitation performance. I'm going to hand over the floor to our colleague Isifu, who can talk to us a little bit about the district league table, what it is and how scalable is it in Ghana, and also what needs to be in place for this to be something that can be taken nationwide. Over to you, Isifu.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jolie. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Could you turn on your video if you're there? Thanks.
Yes, it's on. Okay. Yes. So
okay.
as the presenter from Ghana did mention, we have this ODF league table that is being done at the district and also at the regional level. And this is being piloted in a number of districts and regions across the country. This actually hinges on the institutional structures that are already in place. These districts and regions have what we call District Interagency Coordination Committee on Sanitation, and also at the regional level, we have the Regional Interagency Coordinating Committees on Sanitation. So once these structures are on the ground, it makes it easier to collect data and analyze at the regional level so that you're able to rank the districts. And then based on that, you're able to do advocacy around them. In Ghana, also UNICEF, in partnership with the Center for Democratic Development, we annually launched what we call district league table. And this actually ranks all the districts across the country on the various sectors. It actually have some indicators across all the sectors: wash, health and nutrition, education, poverty, and everything. And then this is indexed into one indicator, and it is used to rank the districts. And then based on that, we are able to find out which district is doing well in terms of development. So in terms of experience, yeah, there's a lot of experience around the ODF league table and then also the league table in general. So the templates are there. So if we really want to move into all districts and all regions across the country, this should not be a challenge. The only thing that needs to be done is to ensure that we have the structures on the ground across the districts and regions. In Ghana, not all the districts are implementing the rural sanitation model and strategy, so they don't have some of these structures on the ground, and which are very critical if you want to generate data for assessing and generating a league table of this sort. So we need to have these structures on the ground. We also need to make sure that the national database for sanitation is actually run across all the regions, and so it will make it easier to generate data and do the analysis from there. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sifu. I think that was a really comprehensive response. I think you highlighted something quite important, which is, this partnership, not only, within WASH sectors, but also within sectors that strengthen local governance. So you mentioned the Center for Democratic Government and having WASH and sanitation included in this index of how local governments are performing, as a key partnership that you have, and I think something that other countries can consider. You also, I think, highlighted the importance, of having the mix of mix of elements in place in order to really, advance sanitation results, which is having the institutions, like you said. We can have a great idea like the district league table that can be working in a few districts or a few local governments. But if we want to take it to scale nationwide, we need to have the institutions in place. So, whether it's WASH units, whether it's the, interagency coordination committee, we need to make sure they have capacity to actually carry out the information. And then we also need to make sure that there's strong monitoring systems so that we do have the data to be able to rank these districts accordingly. So thanks so much for that, Isifu. That's very useful. I'd like to now kind of do a round of contributions from various panelists on a key question I think that we've been thinking about, because so many of us have been working on trying to strengthen local governance for sanitation for several years now. And some of the challenges we face is really around the kind of the sustainability of our interventions. When partners move out, UP, Elvitas, UNICEF, etc., how can we make sure that whatever systems we put in place, whatever capacity we've developed, will actually last beyond the time frame of our presence? So a question to the panelists is, how can development partners better support local governance for sanitation so that we're able to sustain these changes over time? I'm going to start with Afu, if she'd like to contribute, and then maybe move on to Shadrach. Afu, over to you.
Yes. Okay. So thank you, Julian. I think when we were doing these case studies and for learning purpose, that was really a key challenge coming out, sustainability. A lot of have been achieved, how to make sure that this does not go out of hands, or we can sustain what was and scaling up. And it was really a crucial discussion coming in. And I would say that there was a need to make sure that we have a kind of synergy between all actors so that we are on the same level of planning, we are on the same level of implementation in terms of information sharing. And that will help filling different gaps in terms of sustainability. Then one thing also that came a bit into the discussion is that this component of thinking of capacity building of local governments on resource mobilization by putting in place a very innovative financing mechanism where community themselves can mobilize internal resources. And during this research, we had several workshops online where we shared the findings. And one of the municipality, which is not specifically in this case study, which we work with as well in Guinea, in the municipal, can you hear me? Yeah. So the municipality was calling Daramanyaki. And one of the things the mayor mentioned during the workshop has really taken my attention in terms of sustainability. Because he said that in their community nowadays, they are doing what they call income generative activity that supports sanitation and hygiene activities in the community. So they are promoting that one within the community. And I think this is some of the good example to think about sustainability. Because whatever system is put in place, if there is no this financing support of it, resourcing support of it, one day it will collapse. So that's really trying to reinforce the capacity of local governments on creating or mobilizing new way of resource mobilization, new mechanisms. Really, so that's something developing partners should put in their agenda toward strengthening the capacity of the local leadership. So that's a bit what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Afu. So I think from there we heard, the importance of having stronger coordination amongst all the different actors working with the local governments so we can fill in the gaps as needed, as well as, like you emphasized, making sure that we're not only working with local governments to strengthen their capacity for service delivery and sanitation, but also to strengthen their capacity to actually mobilize resources. Shadrach, would you like to add to this discussion with your reflections on, how can development partners better support local governance for sanitation so that it's a more sustainable level of support and type of support? Over to you.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Julianne. To add to the problem even is the fact that political will for achieving ODF, for instance, open defecation free communities or local governments or states, first of all, is different from political championing for sanitation, because political leaders may be excited to say, I am the first state to achieve ODF. But what happens after the excitement of achieving ODF is gone? What happens to the commitment of sustaining the ODF? So development partners have to look at projects and development initiatives from this angle. After the politicians are excited and whatever they've ticked the box that have achieved this is gone, what can be done to sustain that? And I think one of the things is when donor funding is coming, there should be a commitment from an upfront commitment from government, from political leaders in terms of finances. So we had cases on our program where the state had committed by writing that they are going to give, they are going to match the funding, but until the program ended, nothing came. So going forward, government must drop finances ahead before donor funding is released. That is one of the ways. Secondly, donors or development partners should consider capacity building of CSOs, civil society organizations, such that they can carry on the accountability part of the system. So holding political leaders accountable to the commitments they've made for sanitation and hygiene. And generally, I would say, theoretically, I would say that we need to look at projects from the angle of systems strengthening generally, and not just carrying out the rehabilitation of a borehole or sinking one borehole here or there. It has to be thinking about the whole system and how we can improve it and make it sustainable. So if you approach projects from that angle, I think we'll be able to build the systems better. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Shadrach. Really great points about, having matching funds from local governments before donor funds are released, but not only having it, as a commitment, but actually having it released ahead of time to really incentivize, their buy-in, and also making sure that we work really with the partners, again, the civil society organizations who can hold governments accountable for living up to their commitments, including their commitments to finance sanitation. And then also, of course, really strengthening, the systems as we work on sanitation service delivery. And I think certainly with IRC and, all of the partners at UNICEF, the Institute of Development Studies and the Sanitation Learning Hub, there's much more discussions about, how do we improve how we work and our methods of working with local governments to really strengthen systems. Over to our colleagues from Ghana. Maybe I'll start with Nana. Would you like to add to this discussion on how development partners can better support local governance for sanitation in a more sustained way?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. So as development partners work with government, they have to, as much as practical, let government lead the process so that the support development partners give will be technical, financial, but in terms of who is driving the ideas, who is leading the process, government should be seen as leading the process. It's a way of sustaining it because they own it. They don't feel that, okay, so this is coming from somewhere. And two, we need to try and use existing government structures when we are trying to implement rather than come up with new structures. So for example, here in Ghana, under the GOG UNICEF program, the WASH program in partnership with government, those who go out in the communities to sensitize communities to change behavior are government staff, are government workers. These are the frontline staff. Again, those who go to verify if communities have now been declared open defecation free are still government staff. So as much as possible, even though they are consultants, they are UNICEF staff who provide technical support, we try as much as possible to use government structures. If UNICEF wants to send funds, they send it through the government channel, allow the system to work, and then you try and strengthen it. And finally, I think advocacy is very key. Shadrach mentioned strengthening CSOs to be on the back of government for accountability. I think this is very important. So continuous advocacy, trying to also share the success story of implementation. So for example, in Ghana, if government partners UNICEF and we implement a program, the success story must be blown out. It must, not in a negative sense, but it must be told. People must hear it. The politicians must see that, look, it is working. People are changing behavior. So if the politician is thinking that I need some big money to go to communities and build household toilets for every single person, and then the politician sees that if I educate them, if I sensitize them and help them see, the people themselves can do, because there are people who can build. If the policeman begins to see that, then his mind shifts and begins to invest in soft aspect of the sanitation and then sanitation in general, because he knows that there is results.
Great, thanks so much, Nana. So again, emphasizing this ownership from the highest level of government, working through existing systems, again, all part of the discourse on system strengthening for WASH, and also making sure, we have this strong advocacy publication, I guess, of the results to show what's possible, and then, incentivize others to also kind of take the lead, because they'll see that it's probably not as hard as they thought it would be, or not as costly. And I think this again resonates with the findings of the overall study, which is about the importance of reputation in order to motivate local governments to continue to invest in sanitation. Any final words from our colleagues from Ghana? Isifu or Rashida, would you like to add to this discussion before I open up the floor for any audience questions or comments?
Yes. Thank you very much
Yes.
for the opportunity again. Just to add to the points my other colleagues have mentioned, I also want to say that the development partners can support in terms of advocacy at the national level, because the local government feel they are responsible to the national. And so whatever development issues come from there, they respect it and they try as much as possible to work to achieve it. And then secondly, development partners can also support local plans. The local authorities on an annual basis have their own plans, and these plans include sanitation and water and sanitation plans issues. And so you will realize sometimes some organizations will come and then they want to do something outside what the local plans, the development part, the local. Another issue has to do with, we should let communities lead in sanitation issues. We should let communities lead in their own sanitation issues rather than imposing sometimes certain issues on them. When they get to understand that this sanitation affects us, and then they will take it seriously and actually come up with their own initiatives to improve upon their life. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rashida. I think super useful inputs about making sure we have the national government buy-in, because that also helps motivates local government in order to prioritize sanitation. Also making sure that as development partners, when we come and enter a district or any government partnership, that we would be starting off our interventions based on whatever the local governments have planned and prioritized for this year, or for our program timeframe, so that we're really working to support them and their priorities and not putting our own agendas on the table. And lastly, I think really strong point about the importance of community engagement within sanitation, and how kind of that trickles down, and how local governments can also support stronger community engagement. Isifu, do you have any final words that you'd like to share with regards to this this topic?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. My colleagues have already mentioned a lot. I want to add a bit of the capacity building. I mean, how do we prioritize capacity building in all the interventions? Identifying the gaps at the local government structures level, and ensuring that we are building their capacity to be able to lead the implementation. So that donor programs will not go with technical people to go and implement and leave without ensuring that the local government level, they have adequate capacity to lead this implementation on their own. And the issue of a reward system. The program should come with some performance reward system in place, so that those areas where the leadership are putting in place systems to ensure that the implementations are done and done properly to achieve the desired outcome, it should come with some reward system, not necessarily individual benefits, but it's something that goes to the district in the form of recognition or some additional funding to extend the implementation. It motivates those who are doing well to do more, and those who are not doing well may want to also do better so that they will also gain some of these recognition and reward from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sifu. I think really important, like you said, capacity development. Whatever we do, we need to figure out how to make sure that we have the right right skills, right people in place in order to actually carry out this work over time. And I think, the question for us development partners is to really, reflect on how we can make sure that we're able to link, this capacity development to the results, make a case for it, as we develop proposals with partners so that we can make sure that this is invested in. And also, lastly, the importance of performance-based rewards and incentives as key to driving local governance performance. I'm going to open the floor for the last 5 minutes for any additional questions before we do a wrap up. Any questions or additional comments from participants? Would you like to share? You can feel free to type them in the chat box if you'd like, or you're also welcome to raise your hand and unmute. Okay, I don't see any additional comments, so maybe I'll hand over to you, Jan, to wrap it up.
Thank you, Julian, for facilitating this interesting conversation, and thanks to all the panelists and presenters for these great contributions. And it's so good to hear so many interesting things coming from so many different voices, and it's a very good continuation of the work that we have been doing for now several months in East and West Africa. There is no, I would say, clear-cut set of conclusions to these conversations. In terms of wrap-up, I can just say that I've taken note about the emphasis on key performance indicators and on wash and sanitation planning, and also making sure that there is existing budgets for sanitations managed by governmental departments, which means strengthening local systems for sanitation. Also, there has been an emphasis in many interventions about partnerships and collaborations and networks with the inclusion of government, civil society, and many other actors. There has been an emphasis also on the budgetary and financial challenges that persist in many contexts, but there is also the idea that we should not, or we should try not to create a kind of dependency on external support. And there has been, importantly, a mention of developing local capacities, not only in implementing sanitation, but also in mobilizing resources at different levels. I think the role of civil society also for communication, accountability and advocacy is very important in this sense. And I think we can all agree that it is time for all stakeholders involved in planning development actions in sanitation to put governmental institutions, departments at various tiers, locally, state level, nationally, at the center. So not kind of duplicating existing structures, not creating new planning, but trying really to build on things that exist that can be successful if they are strengthened, and if the local actors who are in place are, I would say, empowered to take the lead on these things. These are the things that I have been noted down, and I think they are very relevant in terms of sanitation now and in the future. So it is now 2:30 UK time, or 3:30 in other time zones. I really would like to extend thanks to all the participants in this session that I mentioned at start, but I want to mention them again. So first of all, Julianne for moderating this discussion in the second part of the session. The panelists and the presenters, Afu, Chantal Bangali, Shadrach Gusu, Isif Wadama, Nana Kobe-Abonso, Rashida Mohammed, and also colleagues who either are in the call, who have been contributed to this, who are Jamie and Alice here, but also Firmin from Helvetas in Benin, who was not able to join us. You will see in the chat box, our colleague Alice has added a link to key findings from the research. So you can click on that link in the Zoom chat and download the report. But you can also go to the Pathable platform, so the Africa Sun platform, and you can click on resources, you can click on files, and you will see that we have uploaded 2 recent reports that are on this subject, produced by the Sanitation Learning Hub in French and in English. So please, after this session, take the time to download these resources, either from the link that Alice shared in the chat box here in Zoom, or through the files tab in the main Pathable page. In the Pathable page, you will find a report on the East Africa case studies, as Jamie mentioned, but also a rapid review that was carried out early this year in some West African countries. And we can also anticipate, I think, that in the next 1 or 2 months, we are finalizing and publishing a learning brief from the experience of case studies and workshop with the countries in West Africa. And we would be very happy to share that in the coming 1 or 2 months. So that's really it from my side. I don't know if anybody else would like to add anything at this stage. If it is not the case, thank you, everybody. I hope that I will meet you in other Africa Sun sessions. There is one starting in a half hour, and so many more coming from now to Friday. Thank you so much for your interventions. Please stay in touch, and let's continue this interesting and important conversation. Bye-bye.